art. Yeah.
When I was in middle school, there was this program meant to bring arts into the classroom. What this meant was that spoken word artist Will Ritchie came into my English class for like a week each year. We workshopped some bomb-ass poetry the first couple days, and on the last day we would go on this field trip to the Nasher Sculpture Center to talk about sculpture there. But one year we were able to do something different that we couldn't normally do. See, there was this piece of architecture, I guess? It was made by the famous artist James Turrell as part of his Sky Spaces series. Most people have seen Hotline Bling, which its aesthetic borrows heavily from Turrell's work. The piece itself had you walk down a short corridor, isolating yourself from the sight of tall skyscrapers surrounding this sculpture center. Then you enter this granite room with a ledge for one to sit on. The walls are angled to allow for one to comfortably lean back and look up into the sky. You might be wondering why I only show this piece in pictures. Well, the piece known as Tending Blue, made by James Turrell, no longer exists. It was destroyed. You can no longer sit there. That is according to James Turrell. It's actually still physically there. See, in 2011, the building of a nearby condominium, a building that Raymond Nasher had come upon a gentleman's agreement with the Dallas Police and Fire Department that the building of said condominium would not interfere with Tending Blue or any other sculptures in the garden. The thing is that Nasher died in 2007, and since then the design of the condominium changed. And poof, now not only did the building itself interfere with Tending Blue, but also cast a glare into the museum itself. A glare that would have damaged the art inside had the staff not moved the art to the another side of the building. Upon this revelation, Turrell declared Tending Blue as destroyed, but physically as a piece, Tending Blue still existed. You could still go there, but you won't be able to go inside. This photo is the only known one of the destroyed piece. Turrell no longer considers the work to be art, even though the physical work itself remains unaltered. But really, can a building itself that doesn't really touch the work at all cause a piece of art to be reclassified as a building? Does a condominium have that power to make something not art? And really, what makes art art? See, the thing about defining art is that, well, what was considered not art might be considered art later. It's an arbitrary word based on a soft science. You can't point to a physical aspect of art and say, hey, this is what makes it art, and have it be true about every single piece. You can't take any measurements. Art is just art. There are a lot of working definitions of what art is, and not too many that says what art isn't. The thing is that since people decided that certain works are more valuable than others, people have been trying to define what art is, what work is worth analyzing and prominently displaying. And it's those two that I think that defines art the most. Its ability to be analyzed or critiqued on its non-quantifiable characteristics for a meaning, or to look at its features and to describe what kind of emotions that they convey. Additionally, the context in which that piece is presented really matters. A urinal in and of itself is not art, but when an artist makes one and puts it in an art gallery, it does become art because, well, its context adds to its meaning. But even this definition has some problems, because, well, architecture is just architecture. It has to serve a dual purpose. It can be art and henceforth be able to be analyzed, but also its context is different from other art because it serves a function. It has to hold people, desks, chairs, all depending on what the building is. Architecture's context is not one similar to anything that is more widely regarded as art. But architecture is still widely considered as a form of art, so maybe the context is not really something that matters. But it can help. But mainly, actually, if an audience is able to analyze that work, that is the main distinction. So, to bring it back to the beginning of the video about the piece Tending Blue, Can Tending Blue still be considered art if there is no one there to experience it? Is it still art if it's not given the context of being art by the artist? Well, one thing is really clear, that the piece doesn't exist in the same way that James Turrell had intended it to have. But again, when analyzing work, the author's intent is not the end-all be-all. As Stanley Kubrick once said, how could we possibly appreciate the Mona Lisa if Leonardo had written at the bottom of the canvas, "The lady is smiling because she is hiding a secret from her lover"? This would shackle the viewer to reality, and I don't want this to happen to 2001. So the fact that Turrell no longer deems his work as meaningful should not definitely define whether the work is art anymore, but one could still consider it. So should audiences think of it as art? I feel that even though the work can't be appreciated in the same context as it was originally intended, but the piece now sits in some sort of limbo, a reminder of an agreement broken. You can see the sign of Museum Tower right from the garden, almost as a big FU to Nasher and the Sculpture Center he left behind. It's representative of progress hindering its surroundings, of rich people moving away from the suburbs of Dallas and moving closer to downtown, of the countless new condominiums that have popped up in the Arts District, hindering what used to be a really cool sight when approaching downtown from I-35 heading eastwards into the city, is now blocked by these many new buildings. That is what this represents. And that kind of leads us to our new working definition. Art is anything that represents more than the material that it is made of. I wanted to make this video because I felt that the way art was being talked about online is still kind of wrong. Notice that the definition doesn't really make a qualification for the art to be any good. Whenever the conversation of what is art comes up, people tend to try to put a positive connotation to art, which is just not what art is. Art is just art. It doesn't get any more merit by calling something art. Something else that kind of bothers me is the way gamers in particular talk about games as art. And I'm not going to get into the whole debate of are games art, because really, as the definition that we kind of sort of agreed upon earlier in this video, games are more than the code that is written in them. But a lot of times when people talk about games as art, people show screenshots. Oh, look how pretty. It looks like art. And well, yeah, visual aesthetics really do add to a game's artistic merit, but it's not really exclusively what makes it art. To make this point, I'll show you a part of a video that I was intending to make about this YouTuber called Rags, but decided not to because, well, I don't really like doing callouts. It's better to just talk about a specific issue. But I think that this makes my point a bit more clear. So a little background, Rags is a YouTube commentator who covers gaming stuff mostly, and does video responses that I mostly don't agree with. We'll just leave it at that. Who tends to not really understand a lot of the points being made. Oh, and he also has this habit of really self-aggrandizing himself with quotes. Also, there's no proof anywhere that Nietzsche actually said this. It probably actually originated from Tumblr. And you might really see through what I'm doing and say, I'm poisoning the well, and yeah, I kinda am. Arrest me, but really, a lot of this stuff kinda shows up in his videos. Anyways, Rags makes a video of him generally not understanding, getting increasingly more angry, and kind of proving the points of a Cracked video, specifically on the point that Josh Sargent makes, that games are just more than pretty graphics, and that gamers generally don't care about story. Generally. I make that qualification.
Doing nothing. Have you seen games? Have you actually seen a video game? How could you possibly look at video games and say that we're not doing our part as consumers, whatever that means to you, to prop up the industry, to grow the marketplace, to grow the hobby of video games, when games are probably disproportionately lauded and praised for their graphics? We all hear it, graphics don't matter, and that's not necessarily untrue, right?
Rags then goes on to show a bunch of screenshots of games. He also tells people who want a good story to read a book. So yeah, my point is that art is way more than its aesthetics. What makes each medium more fulfilled art varies. What makes books, poems, and texts art is that its use of literary devices, simile, metaphor, syntax, diction, all that stuff you learned in English class. Music could use this with lyrics, but on top of that has a melody, and so the structure of a song can be changed as well as the beat. Film uses everything mentioned before, but also framing, editing, performance. Video games can include all of these, but also includes gameplay. It's the sum of these parts that, when put together, really makes art good. So when we specifically point out one part in a specific medium and always talk about how it shows how games are art, it is very limiting and kind of really plays into the tendencies of video game companies and gamers to fawn over graphics and gameplay separately. The statement, "gameplay is king," rears its head in this video as well. The point that The Last of Us has this real big problem of ludonarrative dissonance gets brought up by Josh Sargent, to which Rags responds by saying, "Oh, that wouldn't be fun." Kinda proving Josh's point. Like, why can't people push for gameplay that's fun, that also supports the narrative, that would kinda prove that people would want to make games better? So yeah, in good art, the elements of the art supports each other and plays off one another. So the takeaway, if you're really upset and are calling a piece of work not art, hold back and think to yourself, why are you trying to label something as not art? Is it because you think of it as not good? I think once we realize that art isn't inherently good and stop making excuses for art that doesn't work as a cohesive whole, we could have more honest conversations about the art we love and don't love. So this video is getting kinda long, and there's one more tangential topic that I want to address, but I'll do it in another video. It'll make the structure better, and it's kinda better, it's better stands on its own. But we'll be shifting gears next week, or in the next video. We'll be talking about spoilers and Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. See you then, and thank you.